Ben Shapiro.
Again and again and again, we see in public life, when there is a threat against a person of the right, when there is an attack by a member of a left-wing organization or an intersectional identity associated with the left against someone else, that we don't tie that to a broader ideology. We don't attempt to suggest that it's the fault of everyone who has general beliefs in a broader social system.
You do that all the time. Are you like, what? Every Antifa member is a part of some secret organization that they all meet once a year and is controlled centrally by the CEO of Antifa, so saith the right, all the time. Oh, and it was definitely all that postmodern neo-Marxism that got into their brains, infected them, and made them do all these terrible things. Ah, blast that postmodern neo-Marxism, you know? It's tricky. Recently made a documentary on how the right globally are basically ramping up their campaigns of vilifying LGBTQ plus people in an attempt to, well, in some cases, eradicate them from the face of the earth. When you hear the term stochastic terrorism, it references that propagandists, pundits can enact violence upon marginalized or targeted groups for political aims, hence the terrorism, without having to directly do the act themselves. If they continue to fearmonger, if they continue to scare people, and then they provide them with supplemental additional details, such as, hey, these people are groomers, these people are pedophiles, here's their addresses, here's where they live, here's where they work, here's where they're meeting, and then someone shows up and kills a bunch of people, including gay people and trans people. Afterwards, every single one of them gets to deny that they actually contributed at all to this violence. They each get to come forward and say, oh, by the way, it's not our fault if there's a few people with mental illness who go out and do this kind of stuff. Oh, it's not our fault if people are just pushed to the brink with trans ideology that decide to take justice into their own hands. Oh, it's not our fault if the things we said made someone else feel so afraid. The lies, by the way, that's the important part, is its lies. In many cases, when it comes to libs of TikTok, when it comes to Joe Rogan, Matt Walsh, Steven Crowder, Lauren Southern, Ben Shapiro, you name it, oh, Tim Pool especially, they're propagating lies that get people very, very afraid. Look no further than that clip, Joe Rogan and Matt Walsh, where he's like, how many people do you believe have had puberty blockers, children, in the last year? It's like, oh, at this point, millions. It's got to be in the millions. And it's like, so less than 1,000 people per year. Yeah, you're really off on that one. Yeah. Media Matters is gonna have a good day with that one.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Cairo, Egypt, but going now to Colorado, where a gunman wearing body armor and armed with an AR-15 style rifle shot and killed 5 people at an LGBTQ plus nightclub in Colorado Springs just before midnight on Saturday. At least 25 people were injured. People are investigating the shooting at Club Q as a potential hate crime. 3 victims have been identified: Kelly Loving, a trans woman visiting from Denver, and Club Q workers Derek Rump and Daniel Davis Aston, a trans man. The shooting occurred on the eve of Transgender Day of Remembrance, a day to remember transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people who've been murdered as a result of transphobia. This is Joshua Thurman, a survivor of the Saturday Night Massacre.
As I was dancing on the dance floor, I heard shots fired. I thought it was the music because there were no screams, there was no help, help, nothing like that. Then there were more shots. When I realized what was going on, I ran to the dressing room immediately. There was a customer that followed me, and there was a drag performer, Delusional, who was in the dressing room. I made them lock the doors, and we got down on the ground and cut off the lights immediately.
Joshua, what does this mean for the LGBTQ community here in Colorado Springs, this shooting?
It's hard to say. It means so much because this is our only safe space here in the Springs. And so for this to get shot up, like, what are we going to do now? Where are we going to go? Yeah, we can rebuild and come together and this, but What about those people that lost their lives for no reason? Like the other 18 that were injured. I could have been one of them. Like, it means a lot because, again, what are we going to do now? How are we going to feel safe in our city?
This was your safe space?
Yeah, this was the only LGBTQIA plus space in the entire city of Colorado Springs. It's won awards in Independent Magazine. I got my start here. Like, so many of my friends I met here and people that I call loved ones, and now it's shattered.
That's Joshua Thurman speaking to KRDO. Police in Colorado Springs have taken a 22-year-old suspect named Anderson Lee Aldrich into custody. Police say at least one patron of the club confronted the gunman to stop the shooting. The suspected gunman was arrested last year on charges of felony menacing and kidnapping after threatening his mother with a homemade bomb. The gunman is the grandson of California Republican Assemblyman Randy Vogel. We go now to Denver, where we're joined by Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod. She's the first LGBTQ plus African-American to hold office in the Colorado General Assembly. She attended high school in Colorado Springs. She's now running to be mayor of Denver. She tweeted Sunday, waking up to news about another mass shooting.
By the way, it's a MAGA dude. Like, just straight up. There's going to be a lot of fucking gaslighting coming out from the right, the pundits, and they're already working overtime to be like, oh, it's the left who always tries to politicize when something happens before they know all the details. And it's like, motherfuckers, like, are you really trying to wash your hands of this? Like, I'm going to go through all of the fucking assholes, including fucking Lauren Boebert, who thought now was the time to be like, oh, wow, tragedy, thoughts and prayers. Meanwhile, the receipt list of her, holy shit, like, talk about hardcore transphobia all the time. Like, that's basically her brand. What made you think that this was appropriate for you to talk about? Stay the fuck away.
This time in my hometown of Colorado Springs, Club Q is a place of refuge for so many, including myself. I'm both devastated and infuriated. That's the words of State Representative Leslie Herod, who's joining us now. Thank you so much. Our condolences to you, to the whole community in Colorado Springs and Colorado, the United States, actually, and around the world. Can you talk about what you now understand is the latest of what happened, the effects on the community in Colorado Springs, and what you want to happen now?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me this morning, and I'm sad that it's under these circumstances. I just left the vigil in Colorado Springs yesterday, and what I know is I know Club Q to be that place of refuge, to be that place of solace and connection for so many people that feel unconnected. But what I want folks to know and understand is that Colorado Springs is not a place of hate. It's a place of love. And I saw so much love and outpouring of support yesterday when I was down in the Springs with the survivors, you know, with the victims. And folks wanted people to know that. I was speaking to a young man who lost his partner in the shooting. And, you know, while he was completely shaken and completely devastated, he came out for that embrace. He came out for that support. And he got it. And he got it. And I think it's important that we realize that. But right now, we're talking about, you know, what happened that night. We know that there were 2 patrons at least that subdued the gunman. If they hadn't have jumped in and risked their lives to save others, the tragedy would have been more widespread. We know that more folks would have died if they didn't take quick action. They are heroes, they are angels, and we need to lift them up. But I'm reminded that these are folks who are shamed just for who they are, who they love, and how they present. They are shamed by elected officials. They are shamed by community leaders. And just recently here in Colorado, we had a very large nonprofit organization tell people who work there to hide who they are, to not act on their gay urges if they wanted to stay working in that location. That's the stuff that we're up against every single day. That's the stuff and the rhetoric that LGBTQ plus people are up against every single day, and it's got to stop.
You know, this news that if this is the person who did it, he is the grandson of the California legislator, Vogel, who described the January 6th insurrection as the Lexington and Concord event. If you can talk more about what this community of violence is also
A couple of regular people at an LGBTQ plus nightclub are more effective than the entire Uvalde police force. True.
about, and how it must be confronted as you describe people gathering round those that are suffering right now.
Yeah, it's clear why this person did this, right? Why he went into an LGBTQ club and sprayed bullets, mass destruction on people. It's because of the hate, right, that we hear in the rhetoric every single day. And knowing that he is connected to an extremist family is something that I think we all must take note of. But make no mistake, anyone who turns on their Twitter feed or their social media feed every single day can see this hate. In fact, just yesterday, I was targeted by an organization online simply for supporting trans youth. Simply for supporting transgender youth and their families. And I refuse to stop. The hate will not make us go back into the shadows. The hate will not make us be ashamed for supporting those in our communities that need love and support. But make no mistake, there's a clear path and a clear connection between the hateful rhetoric that we hear from people and what we see today. I mean, when we lift up folks like Kyle Rittenhouse, right, and across the country, people are praising him for murdering protesters. It's no surprise that we have more folks that want to go down in history for harming and killing people that have been dehumanized simply for who they love or what we stand up for, and it's wrong. It's got to stop. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent. We all have to stand up together and say this rhetoric has to stop. This using people as political fodder in our games has to stop because it's killing people.
So the Colorado governor, Jared Polis, the first openly gay man to be governor, elected and then reelected, addressed the memorial service yesterday. Colorado is the 11th state to block the use of the controversial defense strategy called the gay panic defense. As a Colorado state legislator, Leslie Herod, can you talk about the battle for LGBTQ rights and what's next on the agenda for Colorado?
Absolutely. During the pandemic, I was a co-sponsor of the bill that ended the gay panic defense, meaning, I killed them or I harmed them or I beat them because I found out that they were gay and I went into a panic. That was a legal defense on the books here in Colorado, and it's a legal defense on the books in many states across this country, and it's wrong. It's wrong because just because someone is gay or transgender doesn't mean that they should be targeted for hate and then let off the hook, And so this battle for LGBTQ equality has been a long fought one in Colorado. We started with
That's absolutely fucked. Was that the first a lot of you have discovered that? Yeah, for a long ass time. In a lot of parts of the U.S., that still is a thing. The gay panic defense, as well as the trans panic defense, where people commit acts of violence towards other people because after the fact they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that was a man. I didn't know that was a woman. Oh my God, I'm not gay.
Amendment 2 as the hate state, known as the hate state because we said it was legal to discriminate against LGBTQ people. Since then, we have made a complete turnaround, right? Where we've passed legislation affirming marriage, where we passed benefits for LGBTQ couples, families, and in adoption. And now we have a gay governor. We're leading the way. LGBTQ people are leading the way here in Colorado. But that's not without backlash, right? That's not without folks coming continuously and bringing legislation that's harmful to LGBT communities, saying it is okay to discriminate, saying it's okay to harm people, saying that it's okay specifically to target and bully LGBTQ youth, and to say that if their families are supporting them and are gender affirming, that they should be in jail. We see these types of bills in Colorado all the time. We see them across the country. And in fact, there has been an increase. And so folks who think that we're just going to age our way out of homophobia and transphobia, they're wrong. This is being bred into our youngest people. This is being echoed in the highest halls of power in our country, saying that we should discriminate, saying that folks should be dehumanized simply for who they are. That's what's breeding this hate. And I got to tell you, I am still infuriated. I woke up yesterday infuriated. I'm still infuriated today. And I know Colorado has much more work to do. And it starts by protecting our transgender community because they are the ones that are under attack so much right now. And people excuse it every single day.
The congressman from Colorado Springs, Republican Doug Lamborn, once pushed to defund PBS for airing an episode of the cartoon Arthur that featured a same-sex marriage.
Oh my God. And who's the snowflakes? Who, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's
the same thing with like Matt Walsh flipping out about like rainbow logos and refracted light and being like, oh God, it's the light, it's blinding, so much gay.
Interesting to see these, like, you know, posts of support, these statements of support and prayers for folks, when literally some of these people have been spewing the hate that made this a reality, right? Spewing the hate that made folks think it was okay to target an LGBTQ nightclub, you know? And quite frankly, you know, folks are forgetting about Pulse. Folks are forgetting about Matthew Shepard, and we can't let that stop. And in fact, in our schools, they want to not teach about Matthew Shepard and his murder. They want to not teach about what happened at Pulse, you know? And they want to put people in the shadows, make folks hide, you know, and ignore what has truly happened to LGBTQ people across the country. We are being targeted. We are being attacked. And all we want to do is live our lives as freely and as openly as everyone else, you know? I'm proud to serve as an LGBTQ elected official, but I got to tell you, when we are not at the table, the rhetoric, the hate, it rises to the top. And we have a transgender legislator in the Colorado General Assembly, the first time ever. And the hate that
Not if you're the LGB Alliance. They openly said they don't support trans victims because they're a hate group. Like, let's be completely fair. The LGB Alliance is like a handful of like very, like, it's mostly like straight cis dudes, and then there's like a handful of other people, members of like, you know, the queer community, who are in there and being used, in my opinion, by the rest of them. But it's horrifying. Like, you cannot suddenly, and this is the problem with the Dave Rubin and the Glenn Greenwalds, by the way, you can't suddenly say that, like, hey, by the way, my activism stops at where it affects me directly. So yeah, I'm fine with, you know, maybe say gay rights, because we've achieved some equality there. There's marriage equality, for example, even though that's probably going to get eroded. You can't trust the Republicans. You can't go over to the right and then suddenly think, oh, I'll be safe. I'll be safe as long as I just basically repeat all of their hatred except for the gay stuff. But I can go after trans people. Yeah, that's fine by me. I don't fully understand it anyway. I'm cis, I'm gay, I'm gonna go after trans people now. Yeah, so welcome to the LGB Alliance.
she gets every single day by our colleagues and our members, you know? It's infuriating. And can you imagine then what our youngest people are going through? I support a group called Draguton, and these are young people who are celebrating who they are. They are performing in drag. They are beautiful. They are glorious, you know? And right now, they are being attacked. They are being attacked.
Worshipper, thank you.
It is a package deal.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes, thank you. It is a package deal. Also, it just, broadly speaking, goes for all groups. Like, we're not free until we're all free. It doesn't matter what marginalized community it is. We have to work on the liberation of everything. We have to end patriarchy. We have to end fucking unjust hierarchies, all this kind of stuff. Yes, 100%. And it's all tied together. So you don't get to suddenly say, like, well, yeah, I'm for indigenous liberation, but I don't really understand the whole asexual thing. So I'm not really going to say that asexuals deserve any of my time and or advocacy, because I just don't get them. I don't understand what's going on there. So yeah. So I don't really care if they're oppressed. I don't care if they're fired from their jobs for being asexual. I don't care if they're ostracized from queer communities because they're asexual. I don't care if they're kicked out of their apartments because they're asexual. I don't care about any of that. I'm just, because I don't understand them. So, you know, that's where my advocacy stops.
And their parents are being attacked simply for living their lives, you know? It's wrong, and I don't want to hear from elected officials. Go ahead.
I want to talk more about drag queen events that have faced online hate and protests, including one.
Trans women have been the staunchest allies in the fight to protect abortion. And you know what else is fucked about all the people who've aligned with TERFs, J.K. Rowling, is that at the end of the day, have you not noticed that all these people seem to be like Christian fasci types, as in like we want women to be subservient to us types? They like all these new male feminists, the same people who were like so out and proud and outspoken about fucking third wave feminism, SJW, pink-haired lesbians, blah, 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 trying to tell us what to do, all that kind of shit. It's like, oh, what a surprise. And now of a sudden these very same people are coming out and being like, oh, actually, I care about women's rights, women's sports especially. Yes, all the sports I never watch, but I care about them deeply. And we have to talk about this. What about the prison system? I'm very concerned about women in the prison system. And so you're like, oh, you are? Okay, so did you know that the majority of sexual assaults by women are not actually occurring from trans people? They're usually occurring from prison guards or other inmates, stuff like that. And then it's like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the trans rapists. That's it. That's the only thing that concerns me. It's like, so you don't actually care about this issue. You don't, like, it's the same thing with pedophilia. Every single right-winger who always tells you is like, we want to fucking catch the groomers. We want to catch the pedos, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, the majority of pedophiles are people who are known to the victims. Are you going to stop them? Is that going to be a part of it?
The state due to the fact that rights are given and taken conditionally.
Thank you again for the $5, worshippers. Very generous of you. I appreciate it.
Planned at Denver Botanic Garden in June during Pride Month that was canceled due to hateful comments and emails. Do you believe the hateful backlash might have contributed to the violence and depravity what happened on Saturday night in Colorado Springs?
Good way of describing it.
Of course they're related. Again, there is a straight line between those types of actions, those types of threats, literal threats against people who are just going for story time or a drag queen celebration, you know, and a transgender day of remembrance, right? Of course, these are all related. And because they go unanswered,
you hear that, you on Ed?
See any type of follow-up or prosecution, because we're not holding people accountable, right? Then it just continues. Every day there's a hate crime in Colorado and across this country that either is unreported or underreported, you know, because folks know and have experienced the fact that their attack has been pushed to the side. And we're still not even calling this a hate crime, what happened in Colorado Springs, and I don't know why we have to wait before we call it that. This was an act of hate. This was an act of terror. This was an intentional act to push LGBTQ people back into the shadows, to make them feel unsafe in one of the few places where we actually do feel safe and loved and supported. It's wrong. And so as I listened to the intro before this program, I sympathize with the patron who talked about how, you know, how can we feel safe again in this place? It's going to be hard, but I encourage us all to go back out. I encourage us all to be ourselves, to be out and to be proud of who we are and to say we're not going away just because of this hate. But we need allies. We need our champions to step up and say something too. We cannot let this go unanswered.
And let's not forget that if, in fact, this person is the same one who threatened his mother with a bomb, so often these mass shootings are linked to violence against women that occurred before. Leslie Herod, I want to thank you so much for...
Very understated fact, by the way. So many times there seems to be a very strong link between people who are okay with violence towards women and also committing acts of mass violence. All right, so let's go through some of the receipts because things are pretty horrifying in that regard. This is Libs of TikTok, aka HARASSMENT. This organization in Colorado teaches kids how to become drag queens and help kids safely experience the art of drag on stage. Colorado State Reps Leslie Herod and Brianna F4CO promoted and encouraged this child drag organization and performance. Hours after a mass shooting in Colorado at an LGBTQ plus bar, HARASSMENT decided to double down and go after a Colorado organization that does drag. This is exactly what she wants. Mass violence against LGBTQ plus people. She's a terrorist. This is the same day. On the exact same fucking day. Like, how fucked is that? Tigwig, thank you for the $10. Let me see the message. During these difficult times, everyone deserves to hear they are valid no matter how much or no matter how they identify. Love will triumph. Oh, I sincerely believe that. Absolutely. Love will triumph, but we have to call this shit out for what it is in order to defeat it. Boston Children's Hospital was targeted by bomb threats for 2 days in a row, including death threats at homes of doctors who work there. Billboard Chris decided to spend all week doubling down, attacking BCH. This is what they want. Now, I would laugh at Billboard Chris all the time because he's so very sad. The guy will stand by himself in front of like rallies and stuff, holding up signs that are like, you know, I happen to be against this thing or something like that. And it's absolutely ridiculous. But this guy is so sad. And he's sad for so many reasons. He basically, like, if you haven't seen them, he'll stand there with the signs, you know, like, what is it? There's no such thing as trans kids. And it's just like, it's like the Nathan Fielder of bigots, you know, that meme where he's just like, oh, my friends are just off to the side having fun, and like that. That's basically Billboard Chris's entire career. The shitty thing, though, is that he has a very big following. He's also one of the people who post nude photos of teenagers in order to say, hey, by the way, look at the surgery, look what they did to them. And you're like, these are nude photos of teenagers who you believe are young girls. So this is especially weird, Billboard Chris, for you to be doing this. Hey girls, Boston Children's Hospital has some tips on how to bind your breasts. The mayor of Boston says I'm a white supremacist for tweeting out these videos, and the mainstream media calls me alt-right, a fascist, and a stochastic terrorist. If I'm all of these terrible things, what are the butchers doing this to children? These people like Libs of TikTok, Mac Walsh, Tucker Carlson, Christopher Rufo have all spent all years stoking and inciting violence against LGBTQ plus people. When that violence happens, they deny it, minimize it, and then double down on the hate. They are sick and twisted sociopaths. Now here's some evidence for you, because we don't care about the feelings, we care about the facts here. Hospitals don't generally get a ton of engagement on Twitter. That all changes, however, when right-wing propagandist Libs of TikTok tweets about them, resulting in a deluge of mostly hostile replies and mentions. Here's what it looks like in graph form. So if you didn't know, bump, 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 Libs of TikTok. Bump, 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 Libs of TikTok. Bump, 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 brap. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. So it's basically these small accounts run by hospital staff will tweet out things like, hey, we got new equipment. Hey, we're really supportive of X. Hey, we're really supportive of Y. Hey, here's a picture of some of our doctors. That kind of stuff. Barely any engagement because people usually don't follow the accounts and or really are invested in the, let's just say, havings and goings of your local hospitals. I don't know how many of you follow local branches of your hospitals on Twitter. If you do, I mean, interesting, neat. But I'll just say they usually don't get a lot of engagement. Until this happens. When this happens, you can just see it going from 0 to 1 to about almost 3,000 replies. And what do you think those replies are in the vein of? Are they like, hey, by the way, hear that you're doing gender affirming care? Neat. That's neat. I think that's cool. And have a wonderful day. Is that what's happening? No. Unsurprisingly, the same thing happens when Libs of TikTok tweets about a school or a school district. The school district and previously obscure Twitter account gets swarmed by the Libs of TikTok followers. This is what we mean when we say stochastic terrorism, by the way. This is like, you now see it before your very eyes in visual form, in graph. This is the amount of engagement they're getting in replies when Libs of TikTok sends something out. And what does Libs of TikTok do? Because Tim Pool will lie to you. He'll be like, oh, well, just this account posting cringe is apparently a terrorist. It's like, no. If it was just a cringe compilation, no one would care about Higher Right Check. No one would even know who the fuck she was. No one would know about Libs of TikTok if that's all it was, outside of right-wingers who want to be like, lol, look at this, look at the SJWs, lol, embarrassing. That's all it would be. Those things are a dime a dozen. There is so many right-wing, like, YouTube channels. Like, it's a whole thing now. Even, like, the Quartering does it. Even the Quartering has tried to get in on the grift, where he's like, oh, all my YouTube shorts are basically just me showing, like, a teacher saying, like, hey, by the way, I happen to identify as he, him, and that's what I'm about. And he's like, oh, look at her, she's silly. Like that's this whole channel now. So no one would talk about it. It's because Libs of TikTok says that this person is a danger to children. Libs of TikTok says this person is a pedophile. This person is a groomer. This person is doing things to kids that are very dangerous. We need to stop them. Here's their details. Here's the school they work at. Here's their phone number. Here's their email. Sometimes even here's their address. Yes, those are ones that have been deleted since. And then just it goes on and on and on. Now, Twitter started to notice, and Twitter started to be like, all right, let's suspend the account. We'll let them back. Ah, God, she's doing it again. Okay, suspend. Okay, some time has passed. She's probably learned her lesson. And she's back. Oh, she's doing it again. Oh, goddamn. Okay, suspend. And that happened about 3 times. I would say, had Elon Musk not taken over Twitter, I would probably assume after this event that just occurred, when there's so much evidence of Libs of TikTok being one of the centerpieces of organizing and telling people this event is grooming, this place is grooming, these people are grooming, probably would have been toasted. The account probably would have been done. But with new daddy Elon at the helm, there's no telling to what degree Libs of TikTok and Higher Right Check, as well as Matt Walsh and all these others, will be able to engage in this kind of behavior that results in people dying, that actually results in people getting killed. So, daily volume of tweets and replies taking schools and school districts that Libs of TikTok tweeted about. As you can see, from this district, boom, nothing to 1,000, boom, nothing to 400, and then to 1,400, boom, nothing until about 700, boom, we got 500, boom, 500. This is like average of 0 to 1 to 2. replies to tweets per day or being tagged in tweets per day. And each one of these is a libs of TikTok post. Each one of these like enormous spikes going from 0 to hundreds if not thousands. 0 to hundreds if not thousands. That's the power this account has. And Glenn Greenwald loves to like downplay this and be like, independent journalists, independent accounts, free thinkers, blah blah blah. Glenn Greenwald, the self-professed godfather of TikTok. Yes, that tweet is still up. He has not taken it down. That is going to be his legacy, by the way, when this is all fucking over. It's not all the good work he did in reporting on Lula. It's not all the good work he's done in reporting on either Chelsea Manning or Edward Snowden. Like, Chelsea Manning saw the writing on the wall way long ago and called out Glenn Greenwald for what he is. Yet another person who's willing to sell out all the rest of the LGBTQ plus, as long as it continues to get him that Peter Thiel paycheck. That's it. Like, that's all he is, and that's all he will be. And it doesn't matter if real people are dying as a result of all this. Libs of TikTok is back from a 7-day ban and has tagged yet another school district on Twitter, flooding their mentions with harassment. Some comments on purported violence, while others seem more intent. The entertainment value of harassing swarmed, the incoming ratio, etc. Everyone bands together to do this. That they could have waited for her to publicly drawn and quartered. Thank you for alerting people. I see anything in my kid's school, I'll take a flamethrower to that place. Pedos get the wood chipper. Friends, it's okay to think this person should be fired or at least sent somewhere for re-education. Save the planet, kill yourself. Weimar Republic 2.0, we know how to fix it. This one is a really common one that pops up with all these far-right fasci types, by the way, is mentioning the Weimar Republic. This is pretty fucked up because it was, in fact, the Nazis who were the ones persecuting the LGBTQ+. It was the Nazis who were burning down the centers, the books, the fucking going after, rounding them up, putting them into internment camps. That's what the Nazis did. So to suddenly say that this is Weimar Republic 2.0, as in, hey, by the way, we're going to go full Nazi unless you stop this shit. If you don't stop this shit, yeah, we're going full fash. We're just saying it. This is as mainstreamed as fucking Steven Crowder, the #1 news and politics channel on YouTube. YouTube will come out and tell you, Trans Day of Awareness, we see you. Do you? Do you notice this? Because this is really fucked up. This is on one of the most popular shows on your network. This makes you a fuck ton of money, gets you a ton of engagement. Do you not want to do something about any of this? Are you going to take a stance? No? You're just going to say, we see you? Cool. That must be fun. It's a day ending in wine. Once again, there's a school district's Twitter mentioning and getting flooded with abuse after being tagged by far-right influencer Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok has tagged yet another school district on Twitter with a predictable result that her followers are now blowing up the mentions of that district in question. Can you imagine being the social media manager for a hospital or a school and doing what you'd always do every single day, where it's just like, okay, now time to make a post. Here's a whole bunch of kids happy reading a new book we have. And oh, what? 3,000 mentions. Ooh, wow. What's everyone so... Kill yourself. Wait, what? Kill yourself. Wait, what? We're gonna wood chipper you. Wait, what? Roblox yourself. Whoa, Jesus Christ. What is happening? Where is this all coming from? I was just tweeting about how we were gonna read stories to kids. What the fuck? Libs of TikTok has now tagged a college official Twitter account with the same result as when she tags school districts and hospitals, a barrage of spammy harassment. The college's most recent tweets alone has garnered over 400 replies, a lot of them from Libs of TikTok fans. And obviously I don't need to show you how each one is just groomers, textbook groomers, pedophiles, groomers. They often post direct threats like this as well. There you have it. And this is John Hopkins All Children's Hospital. So, while Matt Walsh will try to downplay a lot of this stuff, because he's one of the key amplifiers, as is Joe Rogan, as is Tucker Carlson, they are the ones that usually take Libs of TikTok to the next level. It's Libs of TikTok will, do so much stuff. Glenn Greenwald will help them out quite a bit as well. And then boom, you get the Joe Rogans, the Tucker Carlsons, the Matt Walshes who just amplify it. And then all of a sudden it's just everywhere. It doesn't take the daily Children's Hospital bomb threats to make this crystal clear. The worst case scenario is happening, where people have been so inspired by this stuff that they are taking guns and they are killing queer people. That is happening. They are taking fucking fire and trying to blow up buildings. That is happening. They are calling into hospitals where kids need crucial care and threatening them. They are threatening doctors. They are threatening nurses. They are calling in bomb threats to the hospital. This is disrupting the care of all the kids. Doesn't matter if they are cis or trans. That's where we're at. That's why I keep trying to stress this point. They are doing this to such a degree and then trying to downplay it after the fact, but they are straight up inspiring people to murder, to kill. That's what's happening. So it needs to not be downplayed. It needs to be called out for what the fuck it is. And it needs to be honestly discussed, because you'll get people like Lauren Boebert The news out of Colorado Springs is absolutely awful. This morning, the victims and their families are in my prayers. This lawless violence needs to end and to end quickly. This is from the same person who tweeted out, trans women, also known as men, will be forced to sign up for the draft. Looks like Joe Biden has officially confirmed what a woman is and what a woman isn't. This is one of, by the way, fuck tons. Lauren Boebert has so many fucking strikes when it comes to this shit. But everyone who amplifies libs of TikTok and amplifies all this kind of stuff, Christopher Rufo, and Tim Pool. Tim Pool even trying to downplay it, being like, oh, this is just someone who retweets cringy videos. What's the big deal, right? All these people who are trying to downplay this or treat it like a joke. Libs of TikTok has added Stochastic terrorist to her Twitter bio, because of course she has, because she thinks the whole thing is a joke. She feels completely fine and safe from the comfort of her home, hitting send, and then sitting back and then watching the chaos ensue, and then being like, yeah, well, that wasn't me, obviously. What do we have to say about this? Juniper says, hi, Rycheck, owner of Libs of TikTok, is easily responsible for dozens, if not hundreds of LGBTQ deaths at this point, and Elon Musk has just a week ago left them a positive reply. How much longer is she, a terrorist, going to be allowed to have a platform? Well, Elon Musk isn't going to do anything about this. I'll be totally real with you. Tim Pool, this is one of the most insane things ever stated. Retweeting public videos literally killed hundreds of LGBTQ plus people. Lol, this is a pudding person, and the fortitude of a bowl of pudding. You can't even be good when you try to be edgy. Like you got the power of the edginess here, Tim, and you're going with pudding. That's it. Pudding. This person is pudding. Yeah. Lol. Owned. Ben Shapiro.
Again and again and again, we see in public life when there is a threat against a person of the right, when there is an attack by a member of a left-wing organization or an intersectional identity associated with the left against someone else, that we don't tie that to a broader ideology. We don't attempt to suggest that it's the fault of everyone who has general beliefs in a broader social system.
You do that all the fucking time. Are you like, what? Every Antifa member is a part of some secret organization that they all meet once a year and is controlled centrally by the CEO of Antifa, so saith the right, all the time. Oh, and it was definitely all that postmodern neo-Marxism that got into their brains, infected them, and made them do all these terrible things. Blast that postmodern neo-Marxism, it's tricky.
Instead, we say, well, that's an individual and he believes an extreme thing, and that person ought to be ostracized, obviously. But when it comes to the right, then the idea is that if a person who we don't even know what his views are on any of this stuff yet, even if...
Okay, so in many of these cases we do. They've still been trying to downplay the, Paul Pelosi attacker as being how do we ever know what he believed? Should we look at his writing or the things he said or his own testimony saying why he did what he did, his own admission of guilt? No, we'll ignore all of that and just say, well, he's also a nudist, and also there was a pride flag and drugs. He does the drugs. That's decidedly postmodern neo-Marxism. Like, if it wasn't for postmodern neo-Marxism, no one would ever do drugs. So, checkmate. Gotcha, libs.
If it turns out this person has a manifesto that is wildly, horrifically anti-gay, for example, does that mean that everybody who believes that same-sex marriage is wrong, a societally approved same-sex marriage is wrong? Does that mean everybody is now guilty for a person who goes and shoots up a nightclub?
Okay, so I have to interrupt this very quickly because Tim Pool, if you didn't already know this, and sorry, not Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, if you didn't already know this, I didn't incite the mosque shooter, conservative pundit Ben Shapiro insists. This evil piece of human crap happened to be somebody who had seen some of my tweets, Ben Shapiro said, of Quebec mosque shooter. Not going to say his name. So Ben Shapiro was defending quite a bit at the time why people were accusing him of inciting the Quebec mosque shooting. Because again, here is the list of the people whom the shooter was most interested in and would frequent the information of, as in tweets and or Facebook posts and stuff like that. Number one at the top of this pile of absolute garbage, Breitbart's in there, Gavin McInnes, Laura Ingraham, David Duke, Alex Jones, Mike Sverenovich, etc., Paul Joseph Watson, blah, blah, blah. At the very top, Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, 93 references. There is evidence here that this person watched you. We know that because there's the interview that he also gives in the same news article, where I'm not going to play the shooter and what he says, but if you'd like to check it out for yourself, if you're interested in it, you can. You'll see him say that he was convinced by watching Ben Shapiro and the myth of the radical Muslim minority, amongst a bunch of other stuff that he'd watched, right? He was convinced, and this is his testimony, that Muslims were going to come for his family. He thought that Muslims were going to kill him and his family. He thought that if he didn't do something about this, if he didn't take matters into his own hands, that this was going to be the inevitable result, because he was so afraid by listening to these fucking far-right conservative pundits, who at the time, it's probably harder to imagine now if you didn't grow up post 9/11, at the time, that's what the right focused on almost exclusively in terms of their vilification. Yes, occasionally they would dip into the other classics like LGBTQ plus people, but no, they weren't talking about the LGBTQ plus the way they are now. They were talking about Muslims, and terrible Muslims are coming over here to kill us all. You know, if you don't do something about it, you got to take matters into your own hands, or Al Qaeda, they're going to come and get you. They're going to fly more planes into more buildings, more houses everywhere. They're just trying to jump into buses and crash buses. And I've seen Speed 2, you name it. You know, I don't know where my accent's going here, but anyways, that's what this shit was about, and it has real world consequences. Because if you have a video like The Myth of the Radical Muslim Minority, in which Ben Shapiro tries to convince you, based on his complete misunderstanding of data, that, hey, most people who are also Muslims, they want to kill you. There's no such thing as a non-radical minority. This is a myth, okay? These people are dangerous, every single one of them. They've been radicalized. And of course, the whole thing is amplified by the whole new atheist movement. Thank you very much, new atheist, by the way. Very happy I fell down your rabbit hole. That's my own admission. But anyways, when it goes to Ben Shapiro, keep that in mind, because he wants to downplay this. No one is saying that, hey, by the way, right-wingers, conservatives, every single one of you is the shooter. You have all shot. You have pulled the trigger. I mean, Alex Jones loves to try and use this excuse, right? Oh, come on, it wasn't me. What are you gonna say? I literally shot them. Yes, okay, I killed them all. I did it. It's me. I'm Hitler. I invented AIDS. You know, like just trying to downplay. What happens when you are all echoing the same hate speech over and over and over that is contributing to people committing acts of violence? If it's so normalized amongst the right to be like, oh, well, yeah, if you happen to be gay, you're also a pedophile. Yeah. Yeah, if you say that you're gay out loud, if you admit it, you're a pedophile. We're going to normalize this idea, and we're just going to talk about it all the time, and we're going to try and downplay the severity of it, but we're going to be like, gay groomer, trans groomer, over and over and over again. We're just going to normalize that. We all say it. We're all doing it in lockstep. And then when anyone does anything violent, because they're like, hey, that's one of the worst things a human being can do. That's one of the worst things a human being can be. Yeah, I got to stop them. I got to stop these pedophiles. I gotta stop these Muslims. I gotta stop these black people. I gotta stop these indigenous people. I gotta stop blank. It doesn't matter what you fearmonger them to the point of committing violence. But you are seeing this play out in real time. You can actually track when Higher Right Check, Libs of TikTok, makes a post, and when all of a sudden all the hatred comes into that place, or when she posts the address of a drag event, and then right-wing, far-right militia people show up threatening to murder people. Like, it's just like you can just see it happen in real time. You can see it in the data. The facts don't care about your feelings.
This sort of game is really ugly. It's really hideous. And again, it is only played by one side of the political aisle. I've been saying for my entire career, as far as I'm aware, that when you have an act of violence and the person who commits that act of violence is a whack job who is misinterpreting the words of a movement or a politician.
What do you mean when you say the majority of Muslim people want to kill Americans? What does that mean? How are you supposed to interpret this? And if this is true, if what you're saying is a factual statement, the majority of Muslims, of which there are billions on the planet, want to kill you, then what exactly are people supposed to take from that? If that is the truth that you are putting out there. Is someone supposed to sit back and be like, oh, okay. And then if anyone suddenly takes matters into their own hands and murders Muslims because they're scared of what you just said out loud, did they just misinterpret you? Was it just a whack job? It's like, oh, no. When I said that every single Muslim is basically like Al Qaeda or they want to commit jihad and they're threatening to murder every single one of you, what I meant to say was that this is just something I'm saying out loud for money. That's what I meant to say. So I fucked up. I should have said, yeah, at the end, by the way, I'm making this up for cash. This is me exchanging money for lies. That's what the process was.
That person is not reflective of the movement or politician. When a black...
This is the same playbook they used to defend Sarah Palin after that guy shot Gabby Guilford's. Yeah, it's the same playbook they always use. It's like our rhetoric has resulted in violence, but it's not our rhetoric. It's just nut jobs. It's not the things we've been saying out loud, the things we think, the things we convince you of. It's just a bunch of, people with mental illness.
Black
Really.
Lives Matter, fellow traveler, murders Dallas police officers in 2015. That is not the fault of Barack Obama. It's actually not even the fault of Black Lives Matter. When a Bernie Sanders supporter shoots up a congressional baseball game, that's not the fault of Bernie Sanders. And yet the entire left-wing media infrastructure and Democratic Party will immediately shift into, if you don't support every element of our radical social agenda, then you are responsible for murder. It's an ugly, stupid game that is directed.
See, that's not true at all. I'm not asking you to become a socialist. I'm not asking you to stop exploiting people. I'm not asking you to give people the means of production. None of that. I'm asking you to stop vilifying and lying about queer people. Those are two very different things. Stop lying about the LGBTQ+. Stop lying about trans kids. Stop lying about trans issues. Stop lying about gender affirming care. You are lying. You are lying for money. That's what you all do. Stop doing that. I don't give a flying fuck if you're now going to convert over to socialism, Ben Shapiro. I don't think you're cut out for it. I'm sorry. You're too much of a snowflake. This is man stuff. What we should be doing in the meantime, though, is stop vilifying people, stop lying about them so they stop dying. So people stop being inspired to commit acts of actual terrorism.
Specifically at silencing people who disagree with you. And you're seeing the media do this immediately. So the idea here is that this is tied to a broader movement. And you again see this over and over again from the left. So Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez being irreplaceable.
No single word yet about, hey, by the way, this is a horrifying act of violence and a hate crime targeted towards gay people, queer people, trans people. I condemn it in the strongest possible terms. Not a word. It's all about like, the left, sick. The left are trying to exploit this, trying to tell you if you don't believe in groupthink, if you don't buy into every ideology, if you don't buy into gay ideology, trans ideology, CRT ideology, all the ideologies, then you apparently are the same as the murderer. You pulled the trigger yourself.
Irrepressibly foolish. She had a series of tweets on this. So Lauren Boebert, who represents this area.
Bernie didn't do what about us when Scalise was shot? Yeah, it's true. By the way, here's the double standard.
That the alleged shooter...
Because this is something that always gets brought up. This gets brought up every single time. It's like, well, what about fucking Scalise? All right, what about fucking Bernie Sanders? What happened there? What are you going to say about that? You know, did he condemn it? And it's like, yes, he absolutely did.
Republican baseball practice this morning is someone who apparently volunteered on my presidential campaign. I am sickened by this despicable act, and let me be as clear
Not hard to
as
do.
I can be. Violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society, and I condemn this action in the strongest possible terms. Real change
Not hard.
can only come about through nonviolent action, and anything else runs counter to our most deeply held American values.
Like, you could have opened with that. That could have been the first 49 seconds and then gone into the rest. And then right afterwards, you could be like, oh, and that's why AOC and all of these lefties are basically trying to manipulate you and your feelings and think that we're all doing groupthink. But
she tweeted out, the news out of Colorado Springs is absolutely awful. This morning, the victims and their families are in my prayers. The lawless violence needs to end and end quickly. Which is a fine statement. There's nothing wrong with that statement. AOC immediately tweeted, Lauren Boebert, you have played a major role in elevating anti-LGBT
completely agree. Base statement. Well done, AOC.
plus hate rhetoric and anti-trans lies while spending your time in Congress blocking even the most common sense gun safety laws. You don't get to thoughts and prayers your way out of this. Look inward and change. Unless you reflect the progressive ideology of AOC, you are responsible for murder. So again,
no, you don't have to vote for AOC. You don't have to be progressive. You don't have to be a sock dem. You don't have to think that social democracy would be a better system for the U.S. None of that. You just have to stop lying. Stop lying about LGBTQ plus people. Stop lying about trans people. Stop lying about gay people. Stop doing it for profit. That's what everyone is saying out loud. That's what all of the left is screaming at the top of our lungs.
If you say that boys are boys and girls are girls, and if you say that we should not surgically mutilate 16-year-old girls who wrongly believe they are boys,
you're doing it right now. Right now, you're doing that. You're lying for profit in the middle of your video, talking about how people were just murdered because they were inspired by this shit. You're doing it in 4K right now.
This means that you are complicit in a person who had a history of threatening his own mother with a bomb shooting a bunch of gay people in a nightclub in Colorado Springs. This is the take from AOC.
Yeah, a MAGA, fucking grandson of a right-wing Republican.
And then she broadened this out. She said, after Trump elevated anti-immigrant and anti-Latino rhetoric, we had the deadliest anti-Latino shooting in modern history. After anti-Asian hate with COVID, Atlanta, Tree of Life, Emmanuel AME, Buffalo. And now after an LGBT plus campaign, anti-LGBT plus campaign, Colorado Springs. Connect the dots, GOP. Well, the problem is that those dots don't connect. I mean, first of all, the quote-unquote anti-Asian hate attack in Atlanta was directed against sex workers, right? That's what it was. And when she
Vara Cappy,
suggests
thank you very much.
that
Come to Brazil. I would love to come to Brazil, to be totally
AME
honest
is the
with
fault
you.
of Donald Trump, which is what she's suggesting there. Emmanuel AME happened, I checked the date, the day after Donald Trump announced for the presidency. He was not there's no relationship there.
So I attended DebateCon 2, hosted by Modern Day Debate this weekend, because Matt had 2 events with, and this is his living, with the exception of Matt v. Destiny on the best argument for abortion. Trans issues came up in every debate, even topics where it absolutely didn't need to. Small thread. What's sad to me is that our access to healthcare freedom from discrimination for outright criminalization wasn't actively a threat. I genuinely wouldn't care about this, but it's interesting to me that anti-trans people cannot help but bring us up. I find this perplexing because I've literally never advocated for needing to get us. I don't know how oncology works, but I'm not sure I'm out there debating children's rights to pediatric cancer treatment. I simply want access to evidence-based healthcare and freedom from discrimination. If we had those things secure, my energy would mostly go to local community-based efforts. I wouldn't be doing a call-in show on trans issues. I would be building my reptile hobby business up. I would be interested in the entertainment industry in general, not just adult content. But instead, I just have to sit there and watch this group of cis people with no relevant expertise, one after another, took the stage because they could not restrain themselves from bringing up the deranged fiction of what we as trans people are. I would love to never bring up transness again outside of a random fact about me, but instead my passion, my hobbies, my serious topics often need to take a backseat to my problems. I genuinely just want to be left the fuck alone and live my life like everyone else. Is Islam true? Is America heading in the right direction? The debate sphere would find a lot less toxicity and more compelling conversations if there was any display of restraint on the repeated misinformation of interjections of the transgender menace all over the place. It's because, like, the right is obsessed with this. Like, the dudes are fucking overwhelmingly chasers in a lot of cases. Joe Rogan was one of the more recent chasers to come out, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's fucking getting revealed one of the after they have some weird hypersexual hang-ups over this whole issue, and then the rest are just like repeating the same shit. Like, I'm sure you all saw Jackson Hinkle very recently going hardcore anti-trans when a year ago he was opposing the anti-trans legislation of Tulsi Gabbard. But now he's just bought full into the whole thing. It's like, what are we all talking about today? They all NPC out, and then it's just like, oh, yeah, okay, so we hate trans people to such a degree. Makes sense. Black Cat, why didn't the robot read this out? They said, how come we are not talking about Jews and a huge portion of Americans in general that mutilate little boys? Thank you very much for the $5 dono. I don't think that's a uniquely Jewish thing by any stretch. I think that is just a thing that, or a practice that takes place in both Canada and the U.S.
When it comes to the Buffalo shooter in his manifesto actively dissociates from Trump. If we're going to talk about anti-LGBT rhetoric and attacks, the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting was not connected with quote-unquote right-wing rhetoric. It was connected with a person who appeared to be a radical Muslim. Like, the only dots that connect here are that law enforcement has all of these people on their screen and they miss every single one of them. That's the dot that apparently needs to be connected. But again, the idea here from AOC and company is always and forever that if something terrible happens, then we can connect it to our political opponents. Chasten Buttigieg did the same routine. This would be Pete Buttigieg's husband. He tweeted out at Lauren Boebert, you encourage this type of hatred. Get off Twitter and start looking inward. Look inward, look inward, look inward. Again, I'm not going to be lectured on looking inward by people who use the actual instances of horrific evil violence as an excuse to attack political opponents who are not in favor of the horrific evil violence. Did Lauren Boebert call for shootings at nightclubs? Did I miss that part? Who's called for that? Like, I'm going to need.
So the bar, I would say, for Ben is he needs people to literally say, I command you, my legion, to go commit murder in my name. That's what he's looking for. That's the barrier of proof. Should they not meet that, then obviously no. There's no blame that could possibly be put onto people who again are propagating lies for profit, and it's resulting in violence. Yeah, no.
Some evidence that these things are connected, as opposed to you just saying it. And we see this over and over and over again. I mean, going all the way back to the shooter of Gabby Giffords being linked to Sarah Palin without any evidence whatsoever. This is the stupid game. Nancy Pelosi, by the way, did the exact same thing. Nancy Pelosi put out a statement suggesting that it was the fault of MAGA Republicans that this had happened. So she put out this long...
By the way, it's so normalized amongst them to spew this vile shit. Like, he did it in the middle of the segment. He in the middle of the segment, using the same language fucking the far-right fascists has been using. They are mutilating children. Oh, so we're just supposed to accept that they're capable of mutilating the genitals of children? And it's like, again, like it was brought up before, they never talk about circumcision. They never talk about intersex people. They never talk about puberty blockers for cis people. This is a trans thing. This is them having a lot of issues with trans people, their very existence. They don't want trans people to exist at all. So because of that, they have to add all this other shit. Yes, I care deeply about child genital mutilation. Well, that's not actually a part of gender-affirming care for kids. Yes, it is. I say it is. Well, that's not true. You're lying. You're lying for money right now. That's you lying for cash. A real thing that does happen, though, is the genital mutilation of boys. That does happen, circumcision, and it happens on a very large scale. Are you going to talk about that? No, I don't care about that thing. No. This is about trans people.
Remember, this is the moderate, historic Speaker of the House. This is the person who brought Americans together as a historic figure. The thing Nancy Pelosi should be remembered for is that she was an extraordinarily polarizing political figure who had no fear whatsoever of saying the most ridiculous, absurd, and insulting things about her political opponents. You know, for folks on the left who are constantly talking about how Donald Trump polarized the environment and Donald Trump made things worse and Donald Trump created this giant rift in American public life, Nancy Pelosi is a major factor in that.
So Donald Trump, again, he's a symptom, not a cause of a lot of things. But I will say what is unique to Donald Trump is complete rejection of democracy. That one. And then other Republicans kind of being like, oh, we can do that? I didn't know. So we can just be like, I won. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, sure. My election was stolen. Yeah.
As I've said before, Donald Trump was the coroner. He was not the killer. Nancy Pelosi, she put out this statement, quote, as our nation marks Transgender Day of Remembrance, the House Democratic Caucus mourns the countless Americans stolen away.
This was on a day, by the way, that fucking 2 trans people were murdered in cold blood. And he's using this as now is the time to go after all of this fucking cringy lib shit. Like, now I'm going to go after Nancy Pelosi because she was kind of cringe. Now I'm going to go after AOC because she was kind of cringe.
By the scourge of transphobic violence, a crisis that continues to disproportionately harm trans people of color. By the way, statistically speaking, the idea that there is a wild, disproportionate wave of violence against trans people on the basis of being trans, there's no evidence to actually suggest that that is true.
It's the exact opposite of what you just said out loud right now. Yes, no, disproportionately, that, like, for example, black trans women face disproportionate levels of murder. Yes, compared to cis counterparts, especially cis white counterparts. What are you saying out loud? It's literally the exact opposite of the thing you just said. This is the facts, guy. This is the, like, facts don't care about your feelings. What the fuck?
Every murder, every hate crime is evil. But the notion that transgender people are being disproportionately targeted in the United States for death by apparently raging MAGA hat wearing pieces of crap, the evidence for that does not actually exist statistically speaking.
All right.
Anyway, Nancy Pelosi says that fight remains more urgent than ever as right-wing extremists target transgender Americans' most fundamental rights and freedoms. But they're spouting.
That's a strategy for sure. You could just be like, well, yeah, the thing that I want to have be real doesn't exist. So the data backs me up on this, or it does not exist at all. That's what I'm going to say.
Dangerous rhetoric from cable news desks, or openly bullying school children from the halls of power. Bullying school children? It seems to me that bullying school children amounts to taking 5-year-olds and indoctrinating them in the idea they can be members of the opposite sex, and insisting that we not...
He's still doing it. Still doing it. Couldn't even wait a day. Couldn't even wait till the funeral. Just getting right ahead of this. Not only are all of you insane for thinking that in any way, shape, or form our lies and vilification of trans people leads towards people committing acts of violence towards trans people, because again, we keep telling them about how they're trying to mutilate their children and actually take their children and have sex with them. So that does no real world effect. It doesn't have any effect. It's like, it's harmless. Don't worry about that. At the same time, I'm going to spread some more lies, going to do some more vilification, going to keep telling you how they're mutilating your children, going to keep telling you how they're trying to have sex with your kids, because that keeps you nice and afraid and ready to take action. But also I'm going to tell you about how this has no effect whatsoever.
Actually inform their parents of any of this. That seems like bullying. But she continues, MAGA Republicans are cruelly undermining the safety and well-being of our transgender community. I'm not sure what the connection is between saying a boy can't be a girl and a girl can't be a boy and go shoot the person who is doing that. So there are
So a lot of the things you said in this episode, such as they are mutilating children when they're not, so that's a lie, you're lying for profit, or that they are trying to have sex with children when they're not, that's again lies for profit. And again, you are just marginalizing communities that are already marginalized. They just want to exist. That's the fucked up thing, you know? Like, trans people just want to exist. I'll get replies, and this is me as a cis dude, by the way. I'll get replies whenever I talk about anything that's like, you know, pro-trans rights or stuff like that, that are just like, maybe you should stop fucking trying to advocate for groomers going after kids. Maybe, and by the way, this is ramped up so much since Elon fucking took over Twitter. My replies are like, it feels like a 4chan thread sometimes. I apologize to anyone who's like replying to my tweets now and all of a sudden is getting psychic damage from having like actual like Nazis and alt-righters. People have DM'd me telling me to stop retweeting them because there's too many alt-right like people showing up, and I'm like, oh yeah, the alt-right fucking hate me. So that makes sense. They follow me around, but now they're just like open and proud about the shit they say. But again, this is coming to someone who is cis and still gets these replies being like, fucking groomer, pushing for groomer, trans shit, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Like, it is very real. It is ramping up, and it is in large part due to people like the Ben Shapiro's, libs of TikTok, who are lying and scaring you. Like, I don't think fundamentally Republicans, MAGA people, that they would just innately hate trans people to this degree, or they would innately be like, I fucking despise trans people, they are the pedophiles. No, they have to be taught this. It has to be reinforced. And again, it's a small subsection of them that are willing to do all of this online, but IRL, they don't like showing up to counter rallies, because a lot more people show up to be like, fuck you, trans rights are human rights, but they're fine being keyboard warriors, fine feeling safe behind the fucking safety of the computer screen, and then every now and then, the worst case scenario happens. Every now and then, someone grabs a fucking bottle of fucking ethanol and then throws it into a store. Every now and then, someone tries to burn down a nightclub. Every now and then, someone does a fucking mass shooting. And when those terrible, horrifying things happen, Ben Shapiro gets to come out in front of this camera and say, well, you know what? The problem here is the leftists. The leftists are trying to convince you that just because we lie about child genital mutilation doesn't mean that these people are taking violence into their own hands. There's no connection there. I fail to see it.
A bunch of dots that are just not being connected by Nancy Pelosi here, but you don't need the dots. The dots don't need to be connected. They don't even need to be dots. The entire idea here is my opponents are evil, therefore I will attribute the most evil of actions to people who are not even, at this point, associated with them.
That's what you do. You call queer people pedophiles, groomers. That's what you're doing. They are not those things. The majority of pedophiles and groomers are straight cis men. The majority of victims are known to them, are friends and family. That's what the statistics and the data tell us. Facts don't care about your feelings, Ben.
And people who, again, there's no evidence drew inspiration from them. And even if they did, there's no evidence that person is sane in the first place.
Did you see the bullshit Ben posted in regards to the Iran player protest with the pride armbands? No. I'm guessing he's scared of rainbows like Matt Walsh. All these snowflakes are so terrified of rainbows. Refracted light. It's like, oh God, it's blinding. The gay. I don't want to catch it.
She says, horrified by such shameless bigotry, House Democrats are proud to march along our trans friends, neighbors, and siblings as we work to uphold justice and dignity for all. That is why we enacted fully inclusive federal hate crime protections with the historic Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. It's why the Democratic House has twice passed the Equality Act, landmark legislation extending the full protections of the Civil Rights Act to LGBTQ Americans. Again, the idea here is that if you vote against the Equality Act, which is the greatest single violation of religious freedom in the history of the United States, that if you vote for that, if you don't vote for that thing, then you are complicit in murder.
Fucking
Quote,
based.
heartbroken for so many beautiful souls murdered by hate and guided by relentless activists across the country, let us renew our resolve to build the future our children deserve. Together, we will forge a safer, more just America, one where where all of its people can freely and proudly exercise their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is an amazing statement there by Nancy Pelosi.
Cool. Actual bravery. Iranian soccer players refusing to sing the anthem and risking jail or worse. Wait, what about Americans who refuse to sing the anthem? Fake bravery. Europeans threatening to wear rainbow armbands to the cheers of the media, then backing down the minute they were threatened with a yellow card. My God. It is rainbows. Why are they all so scared of rainbows? Like fucking hell, refracted light. It's their enemy.
Again, the idea is that if you do not back Nancy Pelosi's radical left-wing agenda, then you must be guilty of murder. And then people wonder why polarization in American politics is getting worse. The one thing that I generally will not say about my political opponents is that they are people who are engaged in wanton murder of people like me. Like that's not something that I generally do. Like Ilhan Omar is an anti-Semite, but I do not believe that Ilhan Omar is responsible for wanton murder of Jews. She hasn't openly called for that.
Okay, now things are getting complicated because Ben, you've had a lot of trouble in this arena recently with Candace Owens and Candace Owens promoting Yay and a whole bunch of, you know, pretty far right anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, not to mention echoing a lot of them. This is the same Candace Owens, by the way, who was saying that Hitler's problem was that he was not nationalist enough. He had ambitions beyond Germany. He wanted to expand, you know, the empire and go into other countries. If he had just stayed locally, things would have been fine, even though he was actually at that point persecuting the Jews. So that's a weird thing for her to have said or thought or just expressed out loud and be a matter of public record. Yeah, and so anyways, probably nothing.
Like this is it's so.
Kurt Mulgrew, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Appreciate it.
Embedded apparently in our political rhetoric at this point that the left just gets to do this. That as soon as there is an attack, regardless of the evidence, before the evidence is even in, you can immediately just say, well, probably this is Lauren Boebert's fault.
Speaking of, he's hanging out with Milan Fuentes, I know. Well, okay, so is the Fuentes thing confirmed? I know the Milo thing's confirmed. He's going to be his campaign manager for his next presidential run. But yeah, okay, so I saw this, but is this Nick Fuentes? I mean, this looks just like a blob. I mean, Nick Fuentes does just look like a blurry thumb. Don't get me wrong. That's basically what he is. He's a sentient thumb. But this still kind of looks a little blurry. Either way, man, Ye is fucking speedrunning this shit. God damn.
This is Tucker Carlson's fault. Or probably this is Matt Walsh's fault. Or maybe it's Libs of TikTok. There are people literally on Twitter yesterday who were saying that Libs of TikTok is responsible for this attack because Libs of TikTok posts video of drag queen performances in front of small children. People must never be made aware of this.
See? He's still doing it. He can't stop. He cannot help himself. Libs of TikTok doesn't just do that. They will show those events. By the way, the majority of drag events are just the most wholesome things in the world. They are just men in a dress reading to kids. It's the same thing that fucking people have been doing for a very long time. It's not scary. Like, are you afraid of people who play dress up and then read to children? Well, then hopefully you never hire a magician. Not once for your kids, because hey, that person is wearing a costume. He shouldn't do that. What? That's not a real rabbit in his hat, I say. Deceptive. Deceived. He must be a pedophile. No, it's the most wholesome, regular things in the world. They find the occasional ones that are like, okay, most people could agree you've crossed the line. This is probably not appropriate attire for a child. But this happens so rarely that when those one events happen, everyone's like, look at this. Look what you have done. Look at this drag queen event. Blah, blah, blah. This is the worst thing in the world. The vast majority of them are just story time. It's just reading books. It's just reading stories to kids. It's playing some musical instruments. That's it. It's so harmless.
If they're made aware of this, then obviously they go on massive shooting sprees in Colorado Springs, and that is the fault of Libs of TikTok. That's the real problem here.
Yes. Leftists by Matt Walsh, theocratic fascist. Leftists are using a mass shooting to try and blackmail us into accepting the castration and sexualization of children. These people are just beyond evil. I've never felt more motivated to oppose everything they stand for with every fiber of my being. Despicable scumbags. People die, and the first thing they think is, yes, we can use this ammo against conservatives who don't think children should be exposed to drag shows. The irony of this is that, like, that's exactly what he's doing. Matt Walsh, theocratic fascist, straight up being like, oh, a whole bunch of people were killed because of the shit that I promote. You know what? I'm going to say this has inspired me to go even harder because, again, Matt Walsh does not want trans people to exist. He does not want trans people to be on this earth. He wants to eliminate all trans people from the planet. That's Matt Walsh's goal. So to get his aims, to achieve his goals, he's willing to do whatever it takes. Doesn't matter if he endangers cis kids. Doesn't matter if cis hospitals, hospitals with cis children, the majority of whom are cis, are getting bomb threats. Doesn't matter to Matt. They're acceptable losses to him. He doesn't matter if kids die. Well said by Candace Owens. I just want to make sure that I'm correct in understanding that the left is using the tragedy in Colorado to make the arguments that unless conservatives get on board with experimenting on children's genitals with puberty blockers, you can't even get your lies straight. It's the puberty blockers to castrate the genitals, or is it the puberty blockers going to remove the genitals? Is that it? Are the puberty blockers in the room right now, Candace? What's going on? Then nightclub shootings will continue to happen. Thank you for illustrating my point. The men who lead the terrorization of a children's hospital and inspired you down the mass shootings claim to be a victim. Not even the simulation theorists can make this up. Remember when you would compare trans people to arsonists? Your movement owns the violence against LGBTQ plus people, and the fact that you can't even start by saying these events should not be shut up is despicable. Your friend Haya is gloating right now. Well, Haya's already moved on to the next target. Same day. Haya was like, oh, okay, cool. Haya sends her regards. Thank you. On to the next one. All right, so here's the other event I would like you to go attack. I also have nothing to do with this. Mass shootings at Colorado Springs at the LGBTQ plus nightclub comes amid a right-wing media hate campaign against drag queens. At least 5 people are dead and 25 are injured after shooting at the LGBTQ plus nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado, that was hosting a drag show and planned a drag brunch the next morning to mark Transgender Day of Remembrance. The attack comes as right-wing media have focused obsessively on drag shows in recent months, falsely portraying them as a threat not just to children, but the civilization as a whole. For months, anti-LGBTQ plus accounts, Libs of TikTok, has used Twitter to publicize the locations and organizers of drag events while spreading salacious accusations of what might happen there. Recent segments on Fox News have claimed that drag queens are part of a plot to sexualize children. Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire has positioned drag as a threat to civilization, whereas colleague Matt Walsh compared drag shows to cancer, calling for an aggressive approach to fight it. Media observers have warned about the danger of the unchecked rhetoric, the consequences of which have increasingly been evident and dire. By the way, you want to know a list of people who have done drag? Jordan Peterson, Rudy Giuliani. You know who hooked up with Rudy Giuliani while he was in drag? The President of the United States, Donald Trump, Steven Crowder. Lest I go on, are all these people groomers, pedophiles? Have I just listed a whole bunch of pedos? Have I just said the names of a bunch of pedophiles out loud? Because by your rhetoric, that's what's happening here. Media observers have warned about the dangers of unchecked rhetoric, the consequences of which are increasingly evident and dire. Boston Children's Hospital was targeted with another bomb threat last week after being the target of a right-wing fear-mongering campaign of provisions for gender-affirming care. At the start of November, a donut shop in Tulsa, Oklahoma had hosted a drag event targeted by an arsonist, according to Everytown for Gun Safety. Homicides against trans people doubled over the last 4 years. The suspect at Colorado's Club Q was subdued by at least 2 people who police say confronted and fought him, likely saving many lives. Fucking heroes. But members of the right-wing media have mocked attempts by LGBTQ plus people to provide security for their own events in the face of unprecedented hate campaigns. The day before the shooting, members of right-wing media, including Blaze TV's Sarah Gonzalez, the independent journalist Taylor Hansen, Sarah Gonzalez is the one who Elijah Schaffer allegedly sexually assaulted, and Blaze TV's Alex Stein mocked armed LGBTQ plus supporters who stood outside of a transgender storytime event in Denton, Texas, while Pizzagate conspiracy theorist Jack Basevic called for the guards to be arrested by Texas authorities. So what happened to being pro-guns? We have to defend ourselves kind of shit. That just goes out the window. Oh, because it's people you don't like. Okay, so you don't actually have values, beliefs, or morals. You just don't like when the other team does it. And then all of a sudden it's like, defund the FBI, defund the police. We don't care about anything. We just get rid of all these fucking queers with guns. Today, right-wing media figures affiliated with the Blaze TV were joined by masked Proud Boys to taunt a transgender storytime event in Denton, Texas. The right-wing media ignored the presence of the masked Proud Boys and instead focused exclusively on the armed LGBTQ plus supporters. And there's Alex Stein. Again, Alex Stein, by the way, someone who's very promoted by Tucker Carlson and a bunch of other people on the right now. Did you know that Alex Stein actually believes in the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that the Israeli army planted bombs and those bombs were responsible for 9/11? That's what Alex Stein believes and propagates and tells his fans. It is an incredibly anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Why, you say? Well, Alex Stein might suggest that it's because the price of gold went up. Stuff like that. That's Alex Stein. So that same Alex Stein who thinks that people, thousands of whom saw the actual event take place, they were watching a hologram or special effects, or as he put it, some form of CGI. He can't quite explain it. He doesn't have all the details worked out. He just has the anti-Semitism worked out, because again, that seems to go part and parcel with people who also hate trans people, anti-Semites, racists, transphobes, kind of all part and parcel. As news of the mass shooting broke Sunday morning, Libs of TikTok fired off a tweet alerting her 1.5 million followers to an organization that she claims teaches kids how to become drag queens, and 2 elected officials who say she helps support them. Representative Lauren Boebert, who helped fuel a climate of anti-LGBTQ plus hate by telling all the drag queens to stay away from children of Colorado's 3rd District, and who previously responded to a report listing her Twitter account as the 3rd-ranked source of grooming slander on social media by promising to do more, tweeted that this lawless violence needs to end, and end quickly. Club Q is not within the boundaries of Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. Club Q has asked that people interested in donating to the victims and local community do so through a contribution to the Colorado Healing Fund, available at this link. If you go to ! Dono in the chat, a link will pop up to a Twitter account by GLAAD in order to help LGBTQ plus people. If you have $1 to spare in this trying time, I'm sure it would go a very long way. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.